following program is exclusively produced and distributed by Dick Dinman's Double D Productions, Inc., all rights reserved.
Hi, Golden Age film fanatics, and welcome to DVD Classics Corner on the Air. My name is Dick Dinman, and our goal is to become your exclusive guide to the very best of the Golden Age classics coming out on DVD. We'll have reviews, breaking news of upcoming releases, plenty of surprise guests, and a special feature devoted to the great Golden Age film composers, which we call Cinemusic. So let's turn on the marquee and lights, camera, action.
It's time for Dick's Picks, in which I get to shine the spotlight on one of my Dick's Picks of the week. Judy Garland fans rejoice, because our friends at the Warner Archive are celebrating Judy's 100th birthday by releasing not one, not two, but 3 great Garland triumphs on the Blu-ray format. And each and every one look and sound as they never have before, even surpassing their original first-run engagements. First, there's Ziegfeld Girl, in which Judy, Lana Turner, and Hedy Lamarr all try for stardom in this sumptuous extravaganza that co-stars James Stewart. Then, there's For Me and My Gal, in which Judy is teamed for the first of 3 times with Gene Kelly in his film debut. And finally, Judy triumphs in her first non-singing dramatic role in Vincent Minnelli's touching The Clock. Ziegfeld Girl, For Me and My Gal, and The Clock are now available in the sight and sound magic of the Blu-ray format, courtesy of the Warner Archive, even as we speak. Stay tuned for more Dick's Picks, coming up on DVD Classics Corner on the Air very soon. My returning guest today, John Fricke, is justifiably considered by those who know to be the foremost authority on all things Garland. And it's my special pleasure to welcome this celebrated author and raconteur back to DVD Classics Corner on the Air. John Fricke, welcome back to DVD Classics Corner on the Air. It's been years, much too long, and I am delighted to have you back on DVD Classics Corner on the Air.
Well, thank you, Dick. I mean, I think we have had great times together,
yes,
however long ago the last time was, and we have so many of the same enthusiasms, and your support for me personally and professionally, and for the companies for whom I'm fortunate to work personally and professionally, never seem to waver,
and never will. I can guarantee you, they never will.
But I'm glad to be here.
Well, good. And what an occasion, because it's the 100th birthday celebration of the greatest, to our mind, greatest female entertainer of the 20th century, and we'll also be saluting the Warner Archive, who is releasing 3 great Judy Garland films, Ziegfeld Girl, For Me and My Gal, and The Clock. So we have a lot to talk about. Let us start, John.
Let me just say one thing right at the top. One thing, and I have not verbalized this yet, even though I have been talking about these films for the last couple of weeks to different people. One thing I realized as you mentioned the titles is that they are 3 very diverse films. One is she's kind of an ensemble player at the female head of the all-star cast, but it is a true MGM cast of thousands every picture 10 stars, as my father used to say, and that's Ziegfeld Girl.
Yeah.
The Clock, which was her sole dramatic role at MGM, a picture without any songs at all for her. She certainly had drama in some of the others, but this was a straight acting part. And then For Me and My Gal, which was the first movie in which she had star billing alone above the title, and is really a colossal vehicle, first drawer vehicle for her, coupled with the film debut of Gene Kelly. So, I mean, these are three films that are all different in their own ways, and yet they are all showcases for the talent that MGM knew she had.
Let's start with the earliest of the three, which is Ziegfeld Girl, which MGM kind of designed as a follow-up, a belated follow-up to their biggest, one of their biggest successes of the 30s, the great Ziegfeld. Now, as you say, and you're entirely correct about this, Ziegfeld Girl is an ensemble piece. You can't call it a sole Judy Garland vehicle, but for my money, I would watch this film on an endless loop for the rest of my life just to hear her sing I'm Always Chasing Rainbows. I'm telling you, what a great delivery of a fantastic song written in 1917, I believe. How do you feel about Ziegfeld Girl as a film?
Well, very much as you do. I think it is one of those quintessential it's 1941, but one of those quintessential 1940s, pack the marquee with star names, established stars, the greatest of whom would be Jimmy Stewart, who's basically the male lead. Then Judy for name value, because she'd been in the top 10 box office for the preceding 2 years. Lana Turner, who was certainly up and coming and whose role was expanded as filming went on because it was a good storyline and she was doing an excellent job.
Yes.
Hedy Lamarr, who was there with a good role but almost as stage dressing. So Hedy brings the beauty and some of the plot. Lana brings beauty and all the heavy drama. And Judy brings the show business flair to it by being the kid who really does make it from Corrine to Ziegfeld star across the 2 hours of the picture. Plus, I joked a moment ago about my father always used to say about the 30s and 40s pictures when he was growing up, look at that, every movie 10 stars. But that's because all the supporting people he saw week after week in the local theaters, and they were stars to him too. I mean, Tony Martin, Jackie Cooper, Ian Hunter, Charlie Winninger, Edward Everett Horton, Philip Dorn, Eve Arden. I mean, they're all in here. Even Dan Daly in two small scenes. So it really has something to offer in terms of this is studio filmmaking at its height, and it was a great audience pleaser when it came out. The Chasing Rainbows number is effective, especially because it's such a contrast. Judy's the daughter of an old vaudevillian, Charles Winninger, I should say, who insists on her singing the song in a yada-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da tempo and style. And when they stop her cold because of that, she gets the chance to do it her way, the way her father wouldn't let her do it. And even though she has to disappoint him, she has to be true to herself, and it's the song that gets her a Ziegfeld specialty, and ultimately a starring role. Blah, blah, blah. Lana goes the way of all flesh. Hedy renounces the follies for the love of her husband. I don't think I'm giving too much away when I say this, because you can kind of see it coming after the first 20 minutes of the picture.
You really can.
It is very, very, very entertaining. And,
it is, and if anyone wants to see an example of what made Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer great, here you have it right in front of you. I mean, MGM had, quote, more stars than there are in the heavens, and a lot of them are in this movie. I have to say, and you're entirely correct, this is not a Judy Garland film. And I don't even know whether it's really an ensemble film, because the build-up, and to my mind the deserved buildup of Lana Turner, who has a very complex role in this film, the most complex role, I would say, certainly of the three women. And she is excellent. She does not get enough credit for the talent that she really had. Everyone thinks, well, she was gorgeous and that was it. Not the case. This woman can act, and she's sensational in the film.
One thing that I think is interesting, especially I thought of this when you were talking about Lana, if people of today, now Ziegfeld Girl, if they made it today, they'd cut most of the music and put in another 40 minutes of nudity and sex and all the rest of it. And the crazy thing is that if you watch Ziegfeld Girl, it is a very adult picture.
Yeah.
It just doesn't depict what is being implied. But there's Lana Turner lifted out of her home in Brooklyn and into a beautiful Park Avenue apartment with mink coats, and we know that she's not getting that on her Ziegfeld Girl salary.
Right.
Her character is having an affair, and the reason she fights with Jimmy Stewart, who was her loyal boyfriend, is that she's having an affair, and it eventually makes her a drunk. It's solid drama. When you're either hoping Judy's going to make it, although I think, again, anybody watching this knew she would.
Yeah.
You're hoping Hetty's remains faithful. She's tempted by Tony Martin to stray from her husband, and she has a great scene with the woman who plays Tony Martin's wife. It turns out, Hetty's character and Tony Martin are both married to other people.
Yeah.
And it is, it's just so well constructed in an audience-pleasing, non-intellectual manner. But boy, is it entertaining if you let yourself get involved with all of these characters, all of their dreams, all of their desires or lust or love, or it's all there.
Yeah.
So jump in.
Based on my research, the only star who was not particularly pleased to be in this particular movie, in that particular part, is James Stewart.
Obviously, yes.
I think he's kind of wasted here, and I think this may have propelled his decision to go to war even before Pearl Harbor was attacked. And then when he got back 6 years later, he refused to renew his MGM contract. And
I think it was all part of it. I don't think I'm not saying that you're stating it in a black and white manner, but I don't think it was black and white. I think this was definitely a piece to the mosaic.
Yeah.
But again, they needed one strong man.
Yeah.
In Ziegfeld Girl, because Ziegfeld himself is discussed, but he's never seen or heard. And the other guys are Tony Martin, who's just there to sing, Jackie Cooper, who's just there to be a juvenile, Ian Hunter, who's the playboy, and Charlie Winninger, the vaudevillian. Again, they needed a man, a likely man, a likable man, who goes wrong for the love of the girl about whom he cares, and comes back at the end, having paid his debt to society, as they always used to say.
Right.
And it's quite. Again, you think, well, I wish Jimmy Stewart had more to do. I wish Judy Garland had more to do.
Yes.
The only person about whom you can't really say that is Lana, because she's got plenty to do.
Yeah.
But again, these movies were putting out starring vehicles with these people 2-3 pictures a year.
Yeah.
And this was a really good way to get a lot of box office names and people they were trying to build into box office names on the screen in a picture that people would find very much worth their 35 or 50 cents.
Well, Ziegfeld Girl is worth a lot more. It was a big grosser, justifiably so, and a huge crowd pleaser. And it's obviously highly recommended. We're going to go on a quick break, and we'll be right back with John Fricke.
We pause now for station identification.
DVD Classics Corner on the Air is exclusively produced and released by Dick Dinman's Double D Productions, Inc. All rights reserved. And we're back with John Fricke, and we are going to talk about a blockbuster. This film was huge. It was a gigantic financial success, and it's called For Me and My Gal. And it's Judy in her first, I think you can say her first adult role, and it's also the first film that Gene Kelly ever did. And I have
at her insistence.
Yes, at her insistence. I have to say this film is quite delightful, and Judy Garland, I cannot find the words for the immediacy of her emotions. The way she listens, but really listens. Her instincts are like virtually no other actress that I've ever seen. I can forget about her singing and just say, as far as I'm concerned, I think she's the greatest actress that I've ever seen. I don't think I'm overstating the case. And I have to tell you something else I found kind of revelatory about For Me and My Gal, and that was Gene Kelly. His performance is absolutely excellent. And I'm not that big a Kelly fan as we go on with his career, because as far as I'm concerned, too many times his ego got in the way of really honest acting. Now, for me, there are two exceptions. For Me and My Gal, and maybe you'll be surprised at this, Summer Stock.
Doesn't surprise me at all. I would have reached through the recording and slapped you if you hadn't said Summer Stock.
His performance in Summer Stock really shows what a fine actor he could have been. I just think he got a little bit ahead of himself, and I do think in The Pirate he's way over the top, which may have been the point, but at times I'm kind of irritated. Singing in the Rain is my second favorite musical of all time, but there's a single shot that I wish hadn't been in the film, and I'll bet Stanley Donen would agree with me, and that's the shot at the end of the Broadway ballet with Kelly's huge head coming full, you know what I'm talking about, into the screen.
I know exactly what you mean.
That is something that Fred Astaire never would have done, and I think that's all Kelly. But anyway, enough of that, because Kelly is superb in this. And frankly, I don't know why David O. Selznick, who had Kelly's contract first, didn't use him in Keys of the Kingdom, because I think under Henry King's direction, Kelly would have been as good, if not better, than Gregory Peck. So it's strange the way things come about. But let's get back to your feeling about For Me and My Gal.
Well, I'll piggyback on the ideas about Kelly right now, because I think, yes, he's extraordinarily effective in For Me and My Gal, especially his first time on a motion picture camera.
Yeah.
And I think there are a couple reasons for that. Number one, the character that he plays, Harry Palmer, the egotistical, egocentric, my career is everything vaudevillian, is not only ties in with Kelly himself, but it ties in with the title role in Pal Joey, which he had just done on Broadway a couple of seasons before.
Yeah.
So it's a part he had comfortably worn in the past in its own way. And secondly, he was on record as saying that Busby Berkeley, the director For Me and My Gal, didn't want him. Berkeley wanted the original choice, who was George Murphy, but Judy fought for Gene Kelly because she had seen him on the stage, and she knew about his dynamism, and they had socialized briefly in New York, and she had also worked opposite George Murphy, whom she adored, but he didn't have that edge.
No.
He didn't have the volatility.
Not at all.
And Gene always credited Judy with teaching him the basic tenets of motion picture acting, about how to cut it way down for the camera, about don't move that way, move this way. Don't stand up until you know that the camera is full on you if it's supposed to be a full-length shot. All of this kind of stuff. And he said she did it in a very, I'm paraphrasing now, but he said she did it in such a genteel sort of way that it wasn't like dictating, do this, do that. It was just easing him into it and showing him the way. And he, in turn, gave her a dance partner capability that she'd never had a chance to display opposite Mickey Rooney. I mean, you could have Mickey Rooney dancing with the entire world of wax, and you would not notice anybody but Mickey Rooney, no matter how beautiful the women were.
Right.
So I think Gene's effectiveness, Roger Eden's, I'm sure fought for him, because Roger would have understood Kelly, and Arthur Freed, the producer, would have understood Kelly, and they recognized again as it went along what they had in Gene Kelly and how well he and Judy worked together.
Yeah.
But again, the original concept for the film was to have a dancing leading lady and a singing leading lady, and it was going to be Eleanor Powell and Judy and George Murphy and Dan Daly, whom they were building at that point as a potential star. But the script kept getting reworked. Daly went into the service. Eleanor Powell's star was waning to a certain extent by 1941.
Yeah.
And Judy, again, top of the box office in 40 and 41, so it was kind of like, no, this has got to be for her.
Right.
And very, very much so. It was one of those early free pictures, too, where there are like 4 or 5 musical numbers that were cut out because the film got to be too long. But only one of them was a Judy number. Marta Eggert had one of her 2 songs dropped. George Murphy had a couple of his routines dropped. They had to reshoot the whole ending because when they took it out to preview, the scene where Kelly becomes a hero during World War I wasn't as explicit as it was in the previews. And when Judy ended up with Kelly at the end of the picture, the audiences were dissatisfied. They felt that Judy should have still been with George Murphy.
Yeah.
So they redid the last 12 minutes of the film, or at least put in more material in that time, and reshot a whole new musical number.
Yeah.
But again, it is vaudeville true and through and through and true and true, I think.
Yes.
You get a sense of what it was like. You get a sense of what World War I was like and what entertaining the troops in Europe was like. They did everything they could to make the European battlefields and the Palace Theater in New York as realistic as they could, and it worked.
Yeah, this film, to me, it has everything. It has drama, it has comedy, it has great songs, and it just takes you back to the vaudeville days, which, frankly, I wish I would have been around during those days. I know it glorifies the days, and I know how tough it was to have a touring life in vaudeville. But it sure looks good from my sofa as I watch this movie. I love this movie.
I think it looked good from a seat in any of the vaudeville theaters, too.
Yes.
If you were seeing people who were really good at what they did and who kicked it across to a 12, 13, 14, 15, 1,800-seat house, who had the personality and the charisma and the talent, again, I think that's one reason Judy Garland shines, because we know that she was, by tradition and by nature, a vaudevillian, and she had the personality and the communicative power and the charisma and the voice to fill any space.
Yeah. Yeah.
She gets through in For Me and My Gal. She does this in all of her pictures, on one level or another, on many levels. But For Me and My Gal, as you say, the first adult role, and she really, really shows you how to make the cold medium of film a hot medium, in that you do feel compelled to applaud after you watch what she's doing.
Right.
How You're Going to Keep Him Down on the Farm is one of my favorite Garland screen moments, where she's singing to the troops in Paris.
Yeah.
And they start to applaud in the middle of her second chorus, as happened in Judy Garland concerts for all through her life.
Well, I know. I mean, I was there.
Mid-song.
John, you may not know this, but I was there in 1956 at the RKO Palace Theater. It was the first time I'd ever been to anything like that. And it just stayed with me as an experience like no other. It was it was remarkable. I'd never experienced such audience devotion and out-and-out love for an entertainer.
And absolute joy.
Right.
This passion we have for her is not born of idolatry or mindless enthusiasm. It's born of the fact that she was unique and remains unique.
Yes.
100 years after she was born and 53 years after she passed.
Yeah, right. And now let us go to The Clock. Now, this is a totally dramatic film with Judy Garland and Robert Walker about the relationship between a military, I think a private, who's visiting New York, and Judy sort of adopts him in a way. Now, this is an incredibly important film because there are no songs. It's all drama. And I'll tell you, first of all, I have to say out front, I love this film, and Vincent Minnelli's direction is to die for. It's perfect. My sadness comes from the fact that while The Clock made money, it made about 1/5 of what For Me and My Gal had done at the box office, which I guess led MGM to say, hey, you sing from now on. And I have a feeling that she wanted to do more dramatic roles.
Well, I think she did want to do straight drama, and it certainly was less taxing on her than the musicals, with song and dance rehearsals and pre-recordings and multiple costumes and all that sort of thing. And MGM owed it to her after, 7 or 8 years of servitude, indentured slavery, as it were, to give her the chance to do something like that. And Arthur Freed was very happy to provide it. And as a result, it made money, but again, coming out of the war, there had been so many wartime dramas, and what Judy would have done in drama, who knows? But again, to go back to, after The Clock, the first thing she did was get to do Jerome Kern's story and play Marilyn Miller. So that was a very good musical role and an important one, a minor one in an all-star film, but still she absolutely shone. But then they gave her Cole Porter to write as an original score for her, Irving Berlin to write an original score for her, Harry Warren and Matt Gordon to write an original score for her. So they were building the best musical properties they could for Judy Garland, and she was supposed to do Showboat as well. I mean, the couple films she didn't get to do.
And Royal Wedding.
And Annie Get Your Gun and Barclays of Broadway, because she had just run down by that point.
Yeah.
But I think that she would have, I know she was proud of The Clock.
She should be.
And proud of what she had been able to achieve, proud that she fought to get Vincent Minnelli as its director.
One of the joys of The Clock is Vincent Minnelli's direction. What is fantastic to me is there are no extras in a Vincent Minnelli film. They all, even if they have no lines, they all have parts. And I'll give you an example of what I consider Vincent Minnelli's genius. He has Judy and Robert Walker in a restaurant talking over their troubles. And in the middle of the frame is a customer sitting at another table who has a real part. He tries to listen to the conversation between them. His reactions are just as important as what the two leads are doing. And this to me is genius as far as a director is concerned. Do you know which scene I'm talking about?
Yeah, right after they've gotten hastily married.
Yeah.
And they're having their wedding dinner in a cafeteria somewhere.
Yeah.
Miserable food, miserable setting, miserably rushed through their city hall marriage, and there has to be a breaking point.
Yes.
At that point.
Yeah.
And I think again, Minnelli's legend, or the legend about Minnelli and the Clock, is that he came in, he reworked the script to a certain extent. He made New York City the third star of the film.
Exactly.
They had all the background footage that Jack Conway had shot when he was supposed to direct The Clock. And without ever leaving Culver City, Judy and Robert Walker very often seem to be in the heart of Manhattan.
Right.
There's all that process work on Fifth Avenue, in Central Park, in Riverside Park, the recreation of Midtown Manhattan Italian restaurant.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still those places to be seen here, and it makes The Clock very, very believable. And then the people who do have supporting roles, Jimmy Gleason as the milkman, his own wife as his wife.
Yeah.
The breakfast scene that they share with Judy and Robert Walker is beautiful comedy and beautiful drama. It seesaws back and forth without any shift of gears. It's just real life.
Right.
But again, all of these little touches. Roger Eden's playing piano in the Italian restaurant where Judy and Robert Walker...
Oh, Arthur Freed has a cameo. Arthur Freed has a cameo at the station.
Yep.
Well, the bottom line is I think we can say that we really love these three films. Ziegfeld Girl, For Me and My Gal, and The Clock are all available right now from the Warner Archive. And by the way, they look fantastic. They haven't looked this good since their original theatrical engagements. And my feeling is they look far better. Great job from the Warner Archive. And John, I want to ask you what you've been up to, what mischief you've been doing.
Well, I've just come from upstate New York, the village of Chittenango, where Frank Baum, author of the Oz books, was born, and I've been emceeing their annual Oz Stravaganza for the last 32 years. So I was up there early June, and I went right from there basically to Grand Rapids, Minnesota, Judy's birthplace, to MC her centennial.
Yeah.
In between, I did a night at Stonewall here with Lorna Luft, who unveiled a portrait of her mother from a picture that Lorna picked out of my collection, which will now hang at the Stonewall Inn in honor of the launch of the LGBT community pride and riots back in 1969, the weekend of Judy's funeral. I've been doing other interviews with the BBC in England and Australia, and because of the Garland Centennial. And I'm off to Wichita, Kansas next month to do pre-show half hours with producer Wayne Bryan before their 7 performances of The Wizard of Oz. I'm going back up to state New York to film some video tour introductions to the All Things Oz Museum, which will be implemented in the future. And I'm putting the finishing touches on book number 9, the first book I've written that is neither Oz nor Judy Garland. It's a pictorial history of the film Irving Berlin's White Christmas, and that is due out in November. So
well,
we'll talk again.
We will be doing a show. I am going to cry a lot if you don't consent to return to my show for the White Christmas book release, which I'm...
Well, I don't know how many people turn you down, but I don't think I ever have.
No.
So I don't think you have to worry about that. You let me talk about the stuff. I've been saying this a lot lately because of all the talking. When I take the books home, I guess I've done 3 on Judy and 5 or 6 on various elements of Oz. I would take them home to my parents, and my mother would always say, "Johnny Fricke, you put your book on the kitchen table. It's too heavy for me to lift, but I will sit at the kitchen table and look at all the pictures." She said, "But I'm not going to read it because you've been telling those stories in the living room since you were 5 years old. So you give me a chance to tell these stories I guess I've been telling for a long time, and to exult about something that we both venerate and cherish and treasure." And
indeed,
it's a privilege to let people know that these films are on Blu-ray for the first time, and they have, George Feltenstein at Warner Archive, be blessed. They have done their customary glorious job.
And how? And John, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show, and I hope you'll return in November for what I hope will be our Christmas show, saluting your White Christmas book, which I hope you'll be kind enough to send me as soon as it's available.
Oh, absolutely. You're already on the list.
Fantastic.
You're already on the list.
Well, John, thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks for the privilege. Bye.
And sometime we're gonna build a little home for 2 or 3 or 4 or more.
Well, that's my show for today. DVD Classics Corner on the Air is conceived, written, produced, and directed by me, Double D. And if you'd like to hear some of my older, vintage shows, please go to www.dvdclassicscorner.net, where in addition to the broadcasts, you'll find hundreds of my print reviews of classic DVD releases. So, until next week,
keep well, keep happy, and keep listening.